I came home from a 12-hour shift to find an empty driveway. My car, my baby, my freedom was gone. I froze on the sidewalk, my work bag slipping from my shoulder, keys still clutched in my hand. The space where my silver Honda had always sat looked wrong, like a missing tooth in an otherwise complete smile. My first thought was theft. Someone had stolen it while I was working my double shift at the coffee shop. My second thought was worse, much worse. I ran inside, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, and found my mom at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone like it was just another Tuesday evening. "Where's my car?" I asked, my voice already cracking with panic. She didn't even look up from her screen. "We sold it. Milo needed money for his graduation trip to Greece." The words hit me like a physical punch to the chest. My hands started shaking. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what she'd just said so casually. "You what?" I whispered. She finally met my eyes, her expression completely calm, almost annoyed that I was making a fuss. "Don't be dramatic, Frankie. Family helps family. It's just a car." My father walked past us carrying a beer, heading toward his study. He wouldn't even look at me, wouldn't acknowledge what they'd done. That's when something inside me broke. Not loudly, but quietly, like ice cracking beneath weight. I stumbled to my room on autopilot and tore through my desk drawer looking for the title papers. They'd already done it. The sale was complete. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it, pressing down until I couldn't get enough air. My ears were ringing with white noise. I went back downstairs, steadier this time, my shock hardening into something else. "That car was mine," I said quietly, my voice level now. My mom sighed like I was being completely unreasonable, like I was a child throwing a tantrum over a broken toy. "You don't even use it that much, Frankie. You take the bus to work half the time anyway to save on gas. Stop making this into something it's not." That wasn't the point. That wasn't even close to the point. I'd worked 3 years to buy that car. 3 years of double shifts at the coffee shop, eating ramen for dinner, skipped movies and concerts because I was saving every penny. Every single payment had come from my bank account. My money. My name on the title. My car. "Family helps family," she repeated like it was scripture, like those 3 words justified anything. I looked at my dad, desperately hoping he'd say something, anything. He just shrugged and took a long drink from his bottle. "Milo worked hard for that degree. He deserves this trip. Greece is expensive." That was the moment I stopped being their daughter and became just a resource to be managed and depleted. My name is Frankie Tate, and I'm 24 years old. I've been working since I was 16, first at fast food places where I smelled like grease every night, then at the coffee shop where I still worked morning shifts. That car was my first real achievement, the first thing in my entire life that was completely, entirely mine. My parents had always made me feel like being independent was some kind of rebellion against them, some personal insult. Like wanting my own things, my own space, my own money meant I didn't love them enough. My brother Milo was different. He was the golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong no matter how many times he failed. He'd changed majors 4 times in college, taken 6 years to finish a 4-year degree, and never held a job longer than a month before quitting because it was beneath him or not aligned with his goals. But somehow, in their eyes, he was the one with potential, the one worth investing in. I was just dependable Frankie, the one who paid bills when they came up short, the one who kept quiet and never caused problems. I thought I'd gotten used to being overlooked, to being the responsible one while he got to be the dreamer. But this, selling my car without even asking me, forging whatever signatures they needed to make it legal, this was different. This was theft dressed up as family values, and I wasn't going to forget it. I opened my old laptop, the one I'd had since college, and started searching through files. It took almost an hour of digging through folders, but I finally found it. The digital receipt from when I'd bought the car 3 years ago. Clear as day. Frankie Tate, full payment of $10,200, title transfer, VIN number. My name, my money, my property. Everything documented and official. Then I logged into the state's vehicle database, the public records site that anyone could access. I entered my car's VIN number and waited while the page loaded. When it finally came up, my blood went cold. The sale had been filed under my father's name as the seller. But here's the thing. His name had never, not once, been on that title. It had always been mine alone. I zoomed in on the signature section, my heart pounding. It looked like mine at first glance, but when I compared it to my actual signature on other documents, the loops were wrong. The pressure was different. Someone had traced my signature from another document, probably an old check or insurance form I'd signed. My hands trembled as I took screenshots of everything, saved PDFs to multiple folders, backed everything up to cloud storage. I created a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence, and organized every document carefully. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This wasn't just family drama. This was forgery. This was fraud. This was identity theft. And I had every single piece of proof I needed to prove it. I made a decision that night, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling. I would play along. I would pretend everything was fine. At breakfast the next morning, I smiled at them both. "You were right," I said to my mom, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Family helps family." I was being selfish. Milo deserves this experience. She looked so relieved she actually teared up, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Oh, honey. I knew you'd come around. You're such a good sister when you try." My dad nodded approvingly. His newspaper forgotten. "That's very mature of you, Frankie. This is the kind of attitude that makes families strong." I helped with the dishes that evening, asked about their day, acted like everything was perfectly fine between us. Inside, I was documenting everything. Every conversation got noted in my phone with timestamps. Every text message got screenshot and backed up to the cloud. Every casual comment about the car or Milo's trip got recorded. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the hot, explosive way I'd been that first night. Now I was cold, strategic, absolutely certain. My mom started talking about how proud she was that Milo was finally finding his path in life, and how this trip would open doors for his future. I nodded along, asked interested questions, played the supportive sister role perfectly. The whole time I was building my case piece by piece. They thought I'd forgiven them, that I'd accepted their logic and moved on. They had no idea I was just getting started, that every word they said was another nail in their coffin. The next week I took my lunch break and walked to a bank across town, one my parents never used. I opened a new checking account in my name only, made sure all the paperwork was completely separate from anything they could access. Then I called my employer and redirected my paychecks to the new account, every single deposit starting immediately. After that, I stopped contributing to what my mother called the family household fund. Basically, money I gave them each month to help with bills even though I paid rent too. I'd been giving them $300 every month for 2 years, money I could barely afford. After they sold my car, that ended immediately. My mom noticed within 3 weeks. She cornered me in the hallway one evening, her voice tight with stress. "Frankie, the bills came today. The electric bill is due. You didn't contribute this month." I was folding laundry, and I didn't look up from the basket. "Ask Milo to help. Milo's not working right now. He just got back from Europe and he's adjusting, looking for the right opportunity. You know how important it is to find the right fit." Course he was. Of course he needed time to adjust, while I'd been working since I was 16. "Then I guess you'll have to figure it out yourselves." She blinked like I'd slapped her across the face. "Excuse me. What did you just say?" "You heard me clearly. I'm not your ATM anymore. I'm not your backup plan." I picked up my laundry basket and walked past her to my room. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My voice didn't crack. For the first time in my entire life, I felt powerful in my own house. They tried a different approach exactly 2 weeks later. I walked into the kitchen after work to find both of them waiting for me, arms crossed, expressions stern. "We need to talk about your attitude," my dad started before I'd even set down my bag. "You've been acting entitled lately. Disrespectful." I almost laughed out loud. Entitled. That's interesting coming from you. You live here under our roof, my mom said, her voice cold. You owe us rent. You owe us respect. You owe us gratitude for everything we've done for you over the years. I set my water glass down very carefully on the counter. You sold my car. You forged my signature. I think we're even on what we owe each other. My dad's face turned dark red, the color rising from his neck. He slammed his hand down on the table so hard my glass tipped over, water spreading across the wood in a clear pool. This is our house. You follow our rules. You do what we say. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. I didn't scramble to clean up the mess. I didn't try to calm him down or smooth things over. I just looked at him, really looked at him clearly, and saw him for exactly what he was. A man who'd convinced himself that loving his son meant destroying his daughter. A man who'd chosen favoritism over fairness for so long he couldn't even see it anymore. Then I'll leave, I said simply. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. My mom's face went pale. You don't mean that. You're just upset. Watch me. I turned and walked toward the stairs. Frankie! My mom called after me, panic in her voice now. But I didn't turn around. I moved out 2 days later with just 2 duffel bags and a backpack. I didn't have much anyway. I'd already found a room to rent through a coworker. Small, cheap, but safe and mine. My mom cried at the door, mascara running down her face in black streaks. You're tearing this family apart, Frankie. Over a car. Over money. How can you be so cold, so heartless? I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to list every single time she'd chosen Milo over me, every scraped-together dollar I'd given them when they came up short, every dream I'd put on hold while they funded his endless college career and now this expensive vacation. I wanted to make her understand how much they'd broken me. But I didn't. I just smiled, small and tight, and hugged her lightly. Goodbye, Mom. Take care of yourself. My dad didn't even come out of his study to say goodbye. Milo was in his room with his headphones on, probably gaming or watching videos, completely oblivious or uncaring about what was happening. Neither of them watched me leave, watched me walk away from the only home I'd ever known. I loaded my bags into my coworker's car and didn't look back at the house as we pulled away. As we drove through the familiar streets of my neighborhood, I felt something completely unexpected. Not sadness, not anger, not even hurt. Relief. Pure, simple relief. Like I'd been holding my breath underwater for 24 years and finally, I could surface and breathe. My coworker looked over at me. You okay? Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I really am. My new room was tiny. Just enough space for a twin bed, a small desk, and a narrow closet. But it was mine. Nobody barged in without knocking. Nobody told me I was being dramatic or selfish. Nobody went through my things or made decisions about my property without asking. Nobody sold what belonged to me and called it love. The first night, I sat on the floor with my back against the bed and just breathed. The silence felt like luxury, like the most expensive thing I'd ever experienced. For the first time in years, I could think clearly without someone's voice in my head telling me what I should feel or how I should react. But part of me was still restless, unsettled. Moving out was freedom, sure. But justice. That hadn't been served yet. They'd stolen from me, lied to me, gaslit me into thinking I was the problem for being upset about literal theft. And they were going to get away with it unless I did something concrete. I pulled out my laptop and opened the evidence folder I'd created. Every screenshot, every document, every forged signature, every text message. It was all there, organized and backed up. I wasn't ready to use it yet. The timing wasn't right. But I would be ready soon. Some revenge needs time to develop properly, like wine aging in a barrel. Mine was just getting started, just beginning to breathe. And when the moment came, when the timing was absolutely perfect, I would be ready to pour. Milo came back from Greece 3 weeks after I'd moved out, posting hundreds of photos to social media. Him on a beach with crystal blue water. Him at ancient ruins with a sunset behind him. Him holding colorful cocktails with little umbrellas. Every photo looked like a travel magazine, like his life was perfect and glamorous. He acted like a celebrity when he got home, talking about networking opportunities and life-changing experiences and connections that would open doors. My parents ate it up, shared every post, commented on everything. "He's so cultured now," my mom gushed to her friends on the phone, her voice proud. "Travel really broadens the mind. This is exactly what he needed." He never thanked me. Not once, not even indirectly. But I didn't expect him to. People like Milo don't thank people. They just take what they want and move on to the next thing. What I did notice, though, was the change in his posts after about 2 weeks. He started talking about a business venture, some cryptocurrency investment opportunity that was going to change everything and set him up for life. He posted about blockchain and digital assets and financial freedom. My parents were absolutely thrilled, calling me to tell me the news even though I hadn't answered their calls. "This is the start of our family's financial freedom," my mom said in a voicemail. "Milo's going to make us all proud." I listened to the message and deleted it. Then I went back to watching his posts from a distance, my phone pinging with updates. And I waited. 'Cause I knew Milo. I knew his track record of half-finished projects and abandoned dreams. And I knew this was going to end badly. People like him always dig their own graves eventually. They just need enough time and rope. A month after Milo's return, I overheard something that made everything click into place, that confirmed every suspicion I'd had. I'd stopped by the house to pick up some mail that was still coming to my old address. Credit card offers, mostly. I was in the hallway when I heard my dad on the phone in his study. His door half open. "Yes, I'll co-sign," he was saying. "He's my son. Of course I trust him with this." 40,000 should be enough to get the business started properly. My heart stopped. I pressed myself flat against the wall, listening intently. "The house is paid off. We can use it as collateral if the bank needs additional security." He was co-signing a loan for Milo. Massive loan. Using their house as collateral. I felt cold all over, but part of me was smiling inside. When I left 5 minutes later, I was actually smiling for real. Not because I wanted them to fail, but because I knew Milo. I knew his track record with money and responsibility. And I knew this was going to end very, very badly. My mom called me that night, her voice bright with forced cheerfulness. "Milo's starting a business. A cryptocurrency consulting firm. Isn't that exciting?" "What kind of consulting?" asked, keeping my voice neutral. "He's going to help people invest in digital currencies. He met someone in Greece who explained the whole system to him. He's got everything figured out." Closed my eyes. Of course he did. "That sounds great, Mom. I hope it works out. We knew you'd be happy for him. Family should support each other's dreams." The irony was almost too much to bear. I made an appointment with a legal aid office the following week during my lunch break. The attorney was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately put me at ease. I showed her everything. The receipts proving I'd bought the car, the forged signatures on the sale documents, the vehicle records showing the discrepancy. She went very still as she read through each page of my carefully organized file. "This is identity fraud," she said quietly, looking up at me. "Clear-cut textbook case. You could report this to the police any time you want." "What would happen if I did?" asked. She leaned back in her chair, considering. "Investigation by the fraud division. Possible criminal charges depending on how the DA wants to handle it. Restitution ordered. It depends on whether you want to pursue it civilly or criminally or both." I thought about my parents, about Milo, about the house they were about to put at risk. "Not yet," I said slowly. "Is there a statute of limitations on something like this? 7 years for fraud in this state. You have time." I nodded, my mind already working through the timeline. "Then I'll wait. For the right moment." She looked at me carefully, her expression understanding. "Timing matters in legal cases. But so does justice. Don't wait too long and miss your window. I left her office with copies of everything, all officially notarized and documented. My case was completely ready. I just needed the perfect moment. And based on what I'd overheard about Milo's loan, I had a feeling that moment was coming very soon. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. Over the next 2 months, cracks started forming in my parents' perfect picture. My mom's calls became more frequent, her voice increasingly tight with stress she was trying to hide. "How's work, honey?" she'd ask, her tone falsely bright. "Fine, Mom. Everything's fine." "That's good. That's really good. Bills are they're higher than we expected this month." I said nothing, letting the silence stretch. "Your dad's thinking about picking up some consulting work on the side, just to cover the extra expenses. Nothing serious." "Okay." Milo's business is taking a little longer to get off the ground than we initially thought. There it was. I could hear the strain now, the desperation creeping into her voice like water through cracks. "These things take time," I said, keeping my voice completely neutral. Yes, exactly. That's what we keep telling ourselves." Long pause. "Frankie, if we needed help, I'm sure you'll figure it out, Mom. You always do. You're resourceful." I hung up before she could finish the question I knew was coming. Through mutual friends and careful social media monitoring, I learned more details. Milo had moved back home, his temporary office space forgotten. His business had paused for restructuring according to his posts. My dad had taken out a second mortgage on the house. Bills were piling up. The perfect family facade was crumbling piece by piece, and I hadn't even made my move yet. I was just watching, waiting, letting them dig themselves deeper. The universe has a funny way of exposing people when they least expect it. Milo posted something on social media that went semi-viral in our small town, and not in the good way he'd hoped. It was a long rant about fake people who didn't understand real entrepreneurs, and how success required sacrifices others can't comprehend. But buried in the comments section was something absolutely damning. Someone from high school asked how he'd funded his startup with no job history. Milo, apparently feeling defensive and entitled, replied, "My family supported me because they actually believe in me, unlike some people. I know how to use connections to get what I need. That's called being smart and strategic." Screenshots spread through town fast. People started commenting, asking pointed questions. "Didn't your sister's car disappear around the time you went to Greece?" Using family sounds more like using people. Connections. You mean taking advantage. Even some of his old friends turned on him in the comments, calling him entitled and spoiled. Milo deleted the post within hours, but the damage was done. The screenshots lived forever. His business partners, if they'd ever really existed beyond his imagination, stopped responding to his messages. The networking contacts from Greece went silent. My mom called me crying. "People are being so cruel to Milo online. They're saying horrible things. It's not fair. He's trying so hard." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Social media can be tough," I said. "Maybe he should take a break from posting for a while." "This is your fault somehow, isn't it?" "Mom, I haven't posted anything about him. I haven't even commented." "But you're not defending him either." I smiled at my phone. "No, I guess I'm not." 3 months after I'd moved out, they showed up at my apartment completely unannounced. I opened the door on a Sunday morning to find all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Milo, standing in the hallway looking uncomfortable. They looked terrible. My mom had lost significant weight, her clothes hanging loose on her frame. My dad's hair had gone grayer, almost white at the temples. Even Milo looked diminished, his usual cocky swagger replaced by something desperate and afraid. "Can we come in?" my mom asked quietly. I stepped aside wordlessly. They filed in, taking in my small space with careful eyes. I offered tea. Nobody wanted any. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, my mom sat on my second-hand couch and burst into tears. "We're in trouble, Frankie. Real trouble. The bank is threatening to take the house. My dad stood by the window with his back to us, unable to face me. We need help. I sat in my desk chair, perfectly calm. What kind of help? Money. Loan. Just to get us through until Milo's business. His business failed, Mom. You need to accept that. Milo flinched visibly but didn't argue. It didn't fail, my dad said from the window, his voice weak. It's just delayed. These things take time to build. I looked at him for a long moment. How much did you lose on this venture? That's not relevant, my dad said quickly. What's relevant is that we're family. Family helps family in times of crisis. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound came out harsh and bitter. Family. But the same family that sold my car without asking. My dad turned to face me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something completely unfamiliar in his eyes. Fear. Real genuine fear. We made a mistake, he said, his voice cracking. We should have asked you first. We should have handled it differently. Should have asked. I repeated slowly. You should have not forged my signature. You should have not committed fraud against your own daughter. The room went completely silent. My mom's crying stopped abruptly. It wasn't fraud, she whispered. It was fraud. It was my car. My name was on the title. You forged my signature to sell it. That's textbook identity theft and fraud. Milo stood up suddenly. We're family. You're really going to hold that over us forever? Can't you just let it go? I looked at each of them carefully. My mother, who'd always told me to be the bigger person while she spoiled my brother rotten. My father, who'd never once stood up for me or defended me. And Milo, who'd never worked for anything real in his entire life. You're still family, my dad said quietly. Family forgives. Family moves past mistakes. I stood up, walked to my desk, and pulled out the folder I'd been keeping. You know what family doesn't do. I held up the folder so they could see it. They don't forge signatures. They don't steal cars. They don't gaslight their daughter into thinking she's selfish for being upset about literal theft. I opened the folder. I have everything. Every receipt, every forged document, every lie, every text message. And I've been holding on to it for months, waiting. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard in my life. They left without another word. Milo tried to say something at the door, his mouth opening and closing, but my mom pulled him away before he could speak. I watched them walk down the hallway. 3 people who'd taken everything from me and called it love, called it family. That night, I sat at my laptop for 2 hours, staring at the complaint form on the police department's website. My cursor hovered over the submit button. Was I really going to do this? Would this make me as bad as them? Would I regret this decision forever? Then I remembered everything. The empty driveway. The casual, don't be dramatic. The way they'd made me feel crazy for being upset about theft. The years of putting Milo first, always Milo, while I worked and paid and sacrificed everything. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. This was protecting myself. I filled out every field carefully and thoroughly. Identity theft, fraud, unauthorized sale of property. I attached every document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I'd collected over months. Then I wrote a detailed statement, clear and factual, explaining exactly what had happened from start to finish. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, I clicked submit. The confirmation email arrived exactly 60 seconds later. Your report has been received and assigned case number 2024, FR 8891. It will be reviewed within 5 to 7 business days. I closed my laptop and went to bed. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel conflicted. I felt, for the first time in months, completely and entirely like myself. Like I'd finally stood up and said enough. Like I mattered. The call came exactly 6 days later. I was at work, making a vanilla latte for a regular customer, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I stepped into the back room. Is this Frankie Tate? A professional voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Detective Patricia Collins with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling regarding report number 2024, FR 8891 that you filed last week. My heart started racing so fast I thought I might pass out. We've reviewed your documentation thoroughly and verified your claim with the DMV and title records. We also pulled the original sale documents. Everything checks out exactly as you reported. I sat down on a stack of coffee bean bags, my hand shaking. What happens now? We've opened a formal investigation. As of this morning, we've frozen the associated bank accounts pending further review and investigation. We'll also need you to come down to the station for a formal recorded statement. But Ms. Tate. Yes. My voice came out as a whisper. This is one of the most well-documented cases I've seen in 15 years of working fraud. You did everything exactly right. I hung up and sat on the storage room floor for 10 minutes, surrounded by coffee beans and paper cups and the smell of espresso. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular, to the universe, to myself. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Deep, dreamless, peaceful sleep. The fallout was swift and absolutely brutal. I heard about it first through my mom's increasingly panicked voicemails. "Frankie, something's wrong with our bank accounts. We can't access anything. The bank says everything's frozen. Call me back immediately." Then my dad, his voice shaking. "This is serious, Frankie. The bank says there's a fraud investigation. They won't tell us anything. Do you know anything about this? Did someone steal our identity?" I didn't return their calls. What was there to say? 2 days later, I got the full story from my mom's sister, my Aunt Claire, who'd always been kind to me growing up. She called, her voice very careful and measured. "Your parents' accounts are completely frozen. Something about a fraud investigation. The bank won't give them access to anything." A pause. "And Milo? He tried to use his debit card at dinner last night. Declined. In front of everyone at the restaurant. It was humiliating." I closed my eyes, picturing the scene perfectly. "They're calling everyone in the family," Aunt Claire continued, "asking if anyone can help them. Your mom's desperate. But Frankie, before I even consider doing anything, I need to know. Is this about the car?" I told her everything. Every single detail, every document, every forged signature, the months of planning. When I finished, she was quiet for a very long moment. "Good for you," she finally said, her voice firm. "It's about damn time someone held them accountable for how they've treated you." The validation from her, from someone actually in the family, meant more than I'd expected it to. Milo texted me at midnight, exactly 3 days after the accounts were frozen. Just one word. "Why?" I stared at my phone screen for a full minute, watching that single word glow in the darkness. Then I typed back slowly and deliberately. "You already know why." 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, then appeared again. "How could you do this to us? We're your family. You're destroying everything." I typed carefully, choosing each word. "You sold my car. You forged my signature. You stole from me and called it love. You did this to yourselves." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally. "We'll lose everything. The house, everything. Is that what you want? Then you'll understand exactly how I felt that night I came home to an empty driveway." Another long pause. Then, "I hate you. You're not my sister anymore." I smiled in the darkness of my room. "Good," I wrote back. "Now we're even." I blocked his number immediately, then my parents' numbers, then everyone else who might try to guilt me or pressure me into backing down. I'd said everything I needed to say. There was nothing left to discuss. The silence that followed was peaceful, almost holy. No more calls. No more manipulation. No more being made to feel like I was the problem for having boundaries. Just quiet, and the knowledge that I'd finally stood up for myself after 24 years. That night I dreamed about driving. Windows down, music loud, going somewhere new and beautiful. When I woke up I was smiling. The bank repossessed their house exactly 4 months after the investigation started. I heard about it through Aunt Claire, who'd stopped by my apartment with coffee and sad updates she thought I should know. "They're moving into a small apartment this weekend," she said, her voice quiet. 2 bedrooms. Your mom's absolutely devastated. She keeps saying she can't believe this is happening. I sipped my coffee slowly, looking out my window at the parking lot below. And Milo? He's gone. Moved to another state last week, living with some friend from college. Your dad's barely speaking to anyone. He just sits in their rental apartment staring at the wall. Aunt Claire studied me carefully over her mug. "Do you feel guilty about any of this?" I thought about it honestly, really examined my feelings. No, I feel sad that it came to this point. But guilty? Well, they made choices. Every single one was deliberate. They could have asked me about the car. They could have apologized. They could have made things right at any point. "Your mom wants to talk to you," Aunt Claire said. "She says she understands now what she did wrong." I shook my head firmly. "Maybe someday. But not now. Not yet. I need more time." "That's completely fair," Aunt Claire said. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, Frankie. I know that doesn't fix anything or change what happened, but I am proud." After she left, I sat in my quiet apartment and realized something important. The people who should have been proud of me from the beginning never were. And the ones who were proud now, Aunt Claire, my coworkers who knew the story, the attorney who'd helped me, those were the people who actually mattered. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see you clearly, see all your flaws and strengths, and love you anyway. Sometimes family is the people who believe you deserve better. 6 months after filing the police report, I'd saved enough money for a down payment on a car. I walked into the dealership on a Saturday morning with the sun bright and warm on my face. The same model I'd had before, same make and year. But this time I picked red. Bright, bold, impossible to miss cherry red. The salesman walked me through all the paperwork, explaining every form and every number. Every signature was mine. Every payment would come from my account. Nobody else's name appeared anywhere on any document. When he handed me the keys, I actually teared up standing there in the dealership. "First car?" he asked, smiling kindly at my emotion. "Second," I said, wiping my eyes. "But this one's different. This one's really mine." I drove it off the lot slowly and carefully, then headed straight to my new place. Not just a rented room anymore, but a small townhouse I'd qualified for after getting promoted to assistant manager at work. I parked in my driveway, my very own driveway, and just sat there for a long while. Keys in my palm, sunlight hitting the windshield just right, everything perfect. I thought about texting someone to share the moment, to celebrate this victory. But then I realized something. I didn't need to. This moment was mine. Just mine. Nobody could take it from me. Nobody could claim credit for it. Nobody could sell it out from under me. For the first time in my entire life, I felt completely untouchable. Not because I'd destroyed them or gotten revenge, but because I'd finally chosen myself. I'd finally said that I mattered, that my work mattered, that my boundaries mattered. And it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before. 2 weeks later, I drove past my parents' old house. I didn't plan it. I was just taking a new route home from work, exploring my neighborhood. But there it was suddenly, the house I'd grown up in, the house where I'd learned that love could be conditional and painful. There was a different car in the driveway now, someone else's vehicle. The garden my mom used to tend so carefully was overgrown with weeds. The paint was starting to peel near the windows. The whole place looked smaller than I remembered, less important, less powerful. I slowed down but didn't stop. There was nothing there for me anymore. No closure I still needed, no conversation left to have, no forgiveness I was ready to offer. Just an empty house where I used to believe that family meant sacrifice, that love meant making yourself smaller so others could be bigger. I used to think that loving people meant disappearing, meant putting their needs so far ahead of your own that you ceased to exist as a person. But driving away in my bright red car, windows down and music playing loud, I realized something absolutely true and important. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to be less so someone else can be more. Real love sees you, celebrates you, protects you, and never, ever makes you choose between being loved and being yourself. The city lights stretched ahead of me as I merged onto the highway, heading toward whatever came next. My future was wide open, completely mine to decide. And I whispered the words out loud, just to hear them in my own voice. They sold my car to buy his dream. But they never expected I'd drive away from them for good. And I did exactly that. I drove away from their toxicity, their manipulation, their conditional love. I drove toward myself, toward peace, toward a life where I mattered. And I never ever looked back.